Hi everyone, this is Mr. Mitchell. Today we're in topic 2. We're going to be looking at multiplying polynomials by monomials. Now hopefully you guys remember that a polynomial is basically something that has multiple terms. So because this has 3 terms, this is a trinomial. And a monomial is something that has a single term. So 3x squared is a monomial. Down here in the second example, 3 and x are both considered monomials. So we're going to look at how to multiply these things. So for these couple of examples, you've got a monomial being multiplied by a trinomial here. The way that we're going to do this is using that distributive property, and that's something that you guys hopefully are familiar with. So you take your term here, and you distribute it through. Now that just means you're multiplying each of those by each term. So my 3x squared times 7x squared, well 3 times 7 is 21. X squared times x squared, remember this is where you add the exponents, so that gives you x to the 4th. Then you take your 3x squared times the x, it's 3 times a negative 1, which is a negative 3, x squared times x is x cubed. And again, remember, you're adding the exponents. And then finally, you have 3x squared times a 4, that's 3 times 4, which is 12. Your x squared times this over here, that's going to leave you that x squared. And once again, adding exponents. And so this would be your final answer when you multiply that monomial times the trinomial. Now the second example down here has 2 problems, and we're asking to subtract. This is bringing back what we looked at in the first topic, where we're adding or subtracting polynomials. So we start initially by distributing. So we distribute here, and we end up with 2 resulting polynomials. So 3 through this gives you a 15x squared. 3 times 2 is that 6x. And 3 times a negative 4 is a negative 12. Now with this negative x, you want to make sure you pay attention to that sign. It's going to allow us to add in the long run. So here's our first. We're going to distribute this negative x through and in turn add these 2 things. So negative x times 7x squared. So it's a negative times positive, which gives you a negative 7x cubed. A negative x here gives you a negative. X times x is a negative 2x squared. And then the negative x times a negative 3, watching your signs with a negative times negative, gives you a positive 3x. And now we go through this and we combine our like terms. So in this one, there are no x cubes. This one there is. So we have essentially 0x cubed minus or plus a negative 7x cubed, which is a negative 7x cubed. And that one has been now used. We have a 15x squared plus a negative 2x squared. So a positive 15 plus a negative 2 is a positive 13x squared. Those are now gone. Here you have a 6x plus a 3x. So 6 plus 3 is 9x. And then you have a negative 12 plus 0, which is a negative 12. And that would be your final answer. Okay, so that's multiplying monomials through some polynomial, and in these cases a trinomial. Now what I'd like you guys to do is try the next 2. Please pause the video and give those a try. So hopefully you guys pause this video and try these on your own. So let's look at what you get now. So we distribute again through here. That gives you a negative 24. Y times y squared is a y cubed. Here you've got a negative times a negative, which is a positive. 6 times 9 is 54. And then y times y is y squared. And then a negative 6 times a positive 7 is a negative 42. You've got your y there, and there's your final answer for this one. Now on D, it's similar to the B that we tried. And again, should have tried this one on your own already. We distribute those through. You've got a 6t squared. 3 times a negative 4 is a negative 12t. 3 times a negative 15 is a negative 45. Now in this case, we distribute through a positive t, or sorry, 6t. So 6t times 5t, that's the 30. And then t times t is the t squared. And then 6t times 2 is 12t. And finally, we look for like terms. And we have some t squareds here. We have a t. And we just combine those. So 6t squared, 30t squared is 36t squared. The negative 12t, the positive 12t combine to give you 0. And then your negative 45 has no other like term. And so that would be your final answer. All right, hopefully you guys are making it through this. Final problem is this one here. Now for this one, notice we've got an equal sign. And sorry, my board ran out a little bit, so hopefully this makes sense. But we've got all these different parts here, and we've got plenty of distribution to go through. So we've got to make sure we distribute all of these before we start combining. Okay, so we're going to distribute for all four of those, all monomials times binomials. So we distribute here, 2a, 5a is 10a squared. Okay, 2a times a negative 2a gives you a negative 4a. Okay, over here we now multiply these. So 3a times 2a gives you a 6a squared. 3a times 6 is an 18a plus 8. Okay, now that's going to equal what we get when we multiply here. So we have a times 4a, which gives you 4a squared. A times 1, which is an a. Here you've got 2a times 6a, which is a 12a squared. 2a times a negative 4, which is negative 8a. And then you add this 50 on the end. Okay, now, again, look for like terms. Well, here I've got 10a squared and 6a squared. They're on the same side of the equal sign, so I combine them. It gives me a 16a squared. Over here I've got a negative 4a, a positive 18a. That gives me a 14a. And then a plus 8 right there. Now there's my equal sign. On this side I have a 4a squared and a 12a squared. Combine those together, gives you a 16a squared. I've got a positive a and a negative 8a. Combining those like terms gives you a negative 7a, and then plus 50. And from here it turns into solving equations. Okay, so I want to work to get those a's on one side. So I'm going to move all my a squareds on this side. So I'm going to subtract 16a squared from both sides. And what ends up happening is those cancel out. But also, those cancel out. So my a squareds are now gone. Okay, so I'm left with a 14a plus 8. And on this side, a negative 7a plus 50. Okay. So now, bringing this back up, I'm going to move back to the top so it all stays on camera. I've got 14a plus 8 equals a negative 7a plus 50. So I'm going to add 7a and at the same time subtract 8. So those cancel, those cancel. I've got 21a equals 42. And then your final step would be divide by 21. Those are gone. They reduce down to a 1. And 42 divided by 21 is 2. And that would be your final answer. Okay, if you have any questions on this, please feel free to contact me using the chat with the teacher, send me an email, or give me a call. Hopefully this helps out. That was topic 2.